Hello, everybody. A warm welcome to Wine with Jimmy here on the world of the internet. Delighted to have you on board. Thank you for stopping by. This is a wine educational channel, which is designed to really help those of you who want to learn more about the wonderful world of wine, but specifically designed to help those of you who are studying the very complex world of wine to, of course, help you understand it better so you can go into your examinations with greater confidence. Welcome to a series here for the WSET Level 4 diploma. This is on Central Italy, and it's the beginning of everything Central Italy for our section. So here we are splitting Central Italy into 6 series. You'll see they are listed here. So we're splitting Toscana, Tuscany, into 2 sections, then Marche, Umbria, Lazio, and Abruzzo. So these are our 6 series that we will go through. This series we're looking at, which is Toscana, is split into 6. It's not doing the appellations, that follows in the next series, but it's everything else. So the introduction, history, wine business, climate geology, varieties, and winemaking. Parts 1 and 2 are available as free content on worlds of internet like this, but parts 3 through to 6 are only available on my e-learning portal. That's over at www.winewithjimmy.com. Lots of exclusive content there to be found and a wealth of helpful resources to help you with your studies. Also, if you'd like to leave any kind of comment or if you'd like to get in touch with any questions, please do so on the comments section below this video. Make sure you click like because it helps us, yay, and make sure you click subscribe because it helps you, yay, because you'll get weekly updates from us. And of course we have the social media at the bottom of every slide. Really enjoy all of you popping sort of on Instagram and stuff, the moments when you're watching the videos, and sometimes it's taking the dog for a walk and you've got it on your phone, or it's when you're exercising, all these crazy times when you should be enjoying your life. But there we are. So let's get rocking and rolling, talking about everything Tuscan, Toscana. And we're going to go into the location first, then a load of lovely history really sets us up for this wonderful wine region, of course, which many of you will have already fallen in love with. So here is our location. So we are located in central Italy. We are below Emilia-Romagna, and we are very close to, we're on the border of Liguria, which if you have seen the Ligurian series, you'll know that Colli de Luni, the DOC, straddles both Tuscany and Liguria up here. We have a slight border with Marche, we have a fairly large border with Umbria, and then we have Lazio, and it's all actually better here, as you can see. So it's a little bit of a larger area. So when we come to the maps later on through the appellations, you'll see this in much greater detail. Okay, little bit about the history here. So first of all, important for the etymology, it's important to talk about a civilization which predates the Romans and the Greeks. So this is the Etruscan civilization, which were found to have their centerpiece of their civilization in Tuscany. And they expanded as far north as the Padana Plain. Eventually, you'll see the expansion zone just appear, and as far down as Campania. So they had a fairly extensive area. They actually had something which was known as the Etruscan League, which is a league of cities, which is a little bit Greek. When you think about ancient Greece, many people just immediately assume that ancient Greece was one entity, but it wasn't. It was a collection of city-states, things like, of course, like Athens, Sparta, Thebes, example. And the little bit similar here, collection of cities, 12 cities were found within the Etruscan League. Now, the Etruscans are important because they were rather fond of cultural expansion. They were rather fond of wine, and we know that they cultivated the vine. We have many archaeological evidence that's around that. And they were probably so relaxed that when the Romans eventually started to gain momentum, they defeated the Etruscans quite easily. The Romans defeated the Etruscans in the 3rd century BC, and viticulture remained, but not with the same sort of emphasis that it did before with the Etruscans. The Etruscans very much promoted viticulture here, but the Romans didn't see Tuscany as the most important area. Campania was the important viticultural area for the Romans. Okay, so wonderful amount of history in terms of the Etruscans, and the etymology I must mention. Look at the name Etruscan, look at the name Tuscan. It's where our name comes from. Toscana is derived from the Etruscan name. That's where the etymology stems from. And then after that, so the fall of Rome was towards the end of the 5th century. That famous number for the Western Roman Empire collapsed 476 AD, and the Lombards took over a fairly significant, large amount of the peninsula. Tuscany was actually turned into a dukedom at this part of Lombardy. Then the Franks. So Charlemagne defeats the Lombards in 774. That's when Pope Hadrian I expelled the Lombards from the Papal States, and the Lombards invaded. The Pope called upon Charlemagne to help, and he came and defeated the Lombards. Toscana was turned into a marquisate under the Frankish kingdom at this time. Then we enter a really interesting time. So at around the 10th century, we have the beginning of the Encastellation age. So this is the building of many of the important medieval fortress towns and cities. These fortified hilltop settlements were built to protect the locals against invaders. And it became widespread. We have, of course, the likes of San Gimignano in the bottom right, the city of towers, beautiful. Today only has 13 towers, but at its height had something like 70 odd. Pitigliano strewn in rock, as you see in the top right. Monte Regioni, small, but very much almost a perfect setting for a protected town, and Montalcino down in the south, of course, which is a famous and a real strategically important location. Okay, what happens next? So we have the Via Francigena being built in the 12th century. This is a road that connects Italy to France. That's Rome to Vercelli in the north, as you see here. Well, you've got most of them here, look. But you have Rome through San Gimignano is on there, Lucca, all the way up to Piacenza, Vercelli, Torino, and then eventually into France, where it goes towards Langres and finally Reims and up towards the coast. Important for trade, of course, this road. Then around the 12th century, you have the emergence of city-states, many comuni, they're called, city-states that emerge, the likes of Firenze, Siena, but also Lucca, Arezzo, Pistoia, and also Pisa. And Pisa becoming quite important as a maritime republic, of course. We have the Renaissance. So in the 12th to the 14th century, it's important to start to talk about the friction that would happen between the city-states of Firenze, modern-day Florence, and Siena. We have the Guelfis, who are those that support Firenze and the Pope. And then we have the Ghibellines of Siena, so the Sienese, who support the Holy Roman Emperor. This is a painting by Ottavio Borsano, quite famous, that depicts the painting of the Guelph and Guelpheline families that are fighting and squaring up against each other. The actual Renaissance would start around the 13th to the 16th century, centered in Florence, with painters like Raphael, who's from Urbino in Marche, Giotto, who's famous for the Scrovegni Chapel in Padua, and also the geniuses such as Da Vinci and Michelangelo, we'll look at very, very soon. The Italian language is also built on the Florentine dialect. Famous Renaissance figures, of course. So Michelangelo, that's Michelangelo Lodovico Bonarto Simoni, but more widely known as Michelangelo, was born in the late 15th century to the middle of the 16th century and was an Italian sculptor, painter, architect, and poet of what we would call the High Renaissance period. Born in Florence, he was the Florentine polymath, and he developed, very much influenced the development of Western art. He sculpted Pieta and David before the age of 30 and painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel and the Last Judgment at its altar. Then we have, remember, the city-states. So we just talked about Florence with Michelangelo. Come down to Siena, and we have the famous one of Siena, which is Leonardo da Vinci, of course. A very famous Italian polymath whose interests included invention, painting, sculpting, architecture, science, music, math, engineering, literature, and anatomy, geology, astronomy, botany, writing, history, cartography, you name it. He's been called often the father of paleontology, and that is the study of the prehistoric species, and also the father of ichnology, which is the study of trace fossils. He's widely considered as one of the greatest painters of all time, and his works include, of course, the Mona Lisa on the left-hand side, the Vitruvian Man on the far right, Salvator Mundi, which was one of the more records that were sold, The Last Supper as well. But also he had a bit of a genius mind in terms of invention and flying machines and those kind of things. Then we have the influence of the Medici family, who were a wealthy banking family, becoming pretty much the de facto rulers of Tuscany in the 15th century. And they changed this area to a lordship. They defeat the Sienese in 1555. The first duke was Cosimo I, and the Medici family ruled up to 1730. Importantly, Cosimo III, towards the end of their ruling times, was here in 1716 issuing the Bando, which Cosimo III issued in order to officially delimit the Chianti zone of production, making it one of the oldest demarcated and official appellations in the world, along with Pomino, Carmignano, and Valdarno Sopro as well, so a few others in this area. It was immediately structured, but then the Medici family fell away and it kind of wasn't picked up, but it still could be considered one of the earliest. Modern ages. So the House of Lorraine was assigned in this area when the last Duke died, of course, of the Cosimo family, of the Medici family, sorry. And then eventually this area became absorbed into the Kingdom of Sardinia in 1860 and the Kingdom of Italy in 1861. The 20th century went through the normal things: phylloxera, oidium, powdery mildew, World War I, World War II, big decline. All the history around sort of Chianti will be covered in the history section of Chianti. It's not going to be covered here, by the way. The sharecropping system of Mezzadria was abolished in 1960. And that's what prevented organized viticulture. So suddenly there's a boom of organized viticulture in the 1960s and 1970s onwards. And this was called originally, this mixed polyculture was called cultura promiscua, which was very famous in this area. And there's actually something coming back towards this. People have olive plantations, they have cherry trees, they have nuts, the grains, olives, other fruits and vegetables grown often side by side with vines today. Okay, so that's the end of this rather long but first video on the introduction to Toscana. Please do join me for part 2, which talks about the more modern side of the industry and talking about the current wine business that we find here, including things like production numbers and exports. Thank you so much for your time and attention. If you do have any comments, of course, any questions or any concerns, please do pop them in the comments section below. Click like, click subscribe. And if you want to get in touch via social media, you can. But of course, you know what's coming. If you are going to find yourself in the United Kingdom, come and see me. Come and see me for a glass, or a bottle. Cheers.